A god hung from a tree for 9 days, pierced by his own spear, no food, no water, staring straight down into nothing. Now imagine you're the most powerful being in existence. You rule the halls of heaven, and it's not enough because you know something the other gods don't. You know how it all ends. The wolf is coming, the world burns, and you die. So you climb the tree that holds the universe together, and you hang there for 9 days because the only thing worse than dying is dying without understanding why. Let me tell you this story. Asgard, the realm of the gods, built in the upper branches of a tree so vast it held 9 worlds in its roots and crown. This was not a quiet heaven. This was a fortress. The great hall, Valhalla, stood at its center, a roof thatched with golden shields, walls lined with spears, and inside, the dead, thousands of them, warriors killed in battle, handpicked by Odin's Valkyries and brought here to feast and fight and feast again. Every night, the same cycle. They kill each other in the courtyard, rise at sunset, and sit down to roast boar and drink mead. They thought it was paradise. It was a draft. Odin was building an army, not for glory, not for conquest, for something he had seen that the others hadn't. Every morning, Odin sent 2 ravens into the sky, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. They flew across all 9 worlds and returned at dusk to perch on his shoulders and whisper everything they had seen. Every war, every birth, every lie spoken in the dark. And Odin sat on his high seat, a throne from which he could see into every corner of every world, and listened. Not the way a king listens, sorting reports and giving orders, the way a man listens when he's heard something he can't unhear. Because Odin had already been to the Norns. Now, the Norns were 3 women who lived at the base of the world tree beside a well. They carved fate itself into the bark of the tree's roots, not just the fate of men, the fate of gods. Every morning, they drew water from the well and poured it over the roots to keep the tree alive, the same tree that held reality together. And for what they had carved for Odin was this: Ragnarok, the end of everything. The great wolf, Fenrir, would break his chains and swallow the sun. The serpent, Jormungandr, would rise from the sea and poison the sky. Fire and ice would collide. The gods would ride out and fight. And Odin, the Allfather, the ruler of Asgard, the one-eyed wanderer who had spent his entire existence chasing wisdom, would be swallowed by the wolf. He already knew this, and knowing wasn't enough. He needed more. He needed the runes, the symbols woven into the fabric of reality itself. Not letters, not writing, power. Each rune was a spell, the power to heal, to bind, to see beyond time, to speak with the dead. They held the operating code of the universe. But the runes couldn't be taught. They couldn't be given. They had to be taken. And the price was everything a body could pay. Odin walked to the base of the world tree, the tree that stretched from the roots of the underworld to the crown of the heavens. A dragon named Nidhogg chewed at its deepest root. An eagle sat at its highest branch. A squirrel named Ratatoskr ran up and down the trunk all day, carrying insults between them. The universe held together by bark and spite. He carried one thing, his spear, Gungnir, the weapon that never missed its mark. He drove it through his own side. He then tied himself to the tree and hung, face down, into the dark. No food, no water, no horn of mead. The Havamar, the oldest source we have for this, written down from oral tradition around the 13th century, says it plain. No bread did they give me, nor a drink from a horn. The other gods did not come. The text doesn't say whether they were forbidden or whether they chose to stay away. But for 9 days and 9 nights, the Allfather hung alone. Now, Here is the line that sets this sacrifice apart from every other sacrifice in mythology. The Havamar says he was dedicated to Odin, myself to myself. Myself to myself, think about that. There was always a giver and a receiver, two parties. Odin is both. He is the sacrifice and the god receiving it. There is no one above him. There is no one to witness, no one to judge whether the suffering is sufficient. He hangs in perfect, terrifying solitude, a god torturing himself for reasons only he understands. Day after day, night after night, the wind stripped heat from his body. The spear wound didn't close. He stared into the abyss beneath the roots. The mist of Niflheim, the coils of the dragon, the darkness that had existed before the world was made. On the ninth night, something moved in the dark. Shapes, angular, sharp, luminous. They surfaced from below like something that had been waiting to be found. The runes. Now, they didn't drift toward him. They held still. He had to reach for them. He screamed. The Havamar says he wailed. He screamed the runes into his hands. This was not peaceful enlightenment, not a vision received in silence. This was knowledge ripped from the void through 9 days of agony, seized at the moment the body had nothing left. He grabbed them and fell. Now, if that doesn't stop you cold, I don't know what will. And if you're not subscribed, what are we doing here? Hit subscribe with all notifications on so you don't miss these stories. He survived. He stood, he walked, and he was changed. Not healed, but expanded. 18 spells lived inside him now. He could calm a storm. He could dull a blade mid-swing. He could make a hanged man walk and speak. He could win any heart. But it wasn't enough. There was a well. At the base of another of the world tree's roots, the one reaching toward the land of the frost giants, a pool of water had gathered since before time had a name. This was Mimir's well, and the well wasn't water. It was wisdom, raw, undiluted understanding of everything that is, was, and would be. The well had a guardian, and here's where the story turns strange even by the standards of Norse mythology. Mimir had been the wisest of the Aesir gods, Odin's counselor, his most trusted voice. When the great war between Aesir and the Vanir gods ended in a truce, both sides exchanged hostages as a show of good faith. The Aesir sent Mimir to the Vanir. The Vanir cut off his head and sent it back. Odin received the severed head of his wisest ally packed in a box. And what he did next tells you everything about the kind of god he was. He did not mourn, he did not rage. He embalmed the head with herbs so it wouldn't rot. He chanted spells over the dead mouth until it moved again, until it spoke. And from that day forward, Odin carried the head with him. He consulted it. He whispered to it. His most important advisor was a severed head in a bag that answered questions in the dark. That was the guardian of the well. Odin came to the water and asked for a drink. Mimir, his own creation, his own preserved relic, told him the price. Not gold, not blood, not a life, an eye. Odin reached to his own face, pressed his fingers into his eye socket, and pulled. He dropped his eye into the well. It sank, it settled, and according to the Voluspa, the oldest Norse poem we have, the prophecy that opens the Poetic Edda, it is still there. Mimir drinks mead every morning from Valhathar's wage. Valhather, father of the slain Odin, his eye resting at the bottom of the well, still open, still aware, watching everything from below, while the god above watches with one eye from his throne. He drank from the well, and everything came in. The shape of the cosmos, the names of the dead and the unborn, the paths of every star, the roots beneath the roots, the fate of every creature that had ever lived or would live. And there, beneath all of it, the confirmation. Ragnarok. The chains would break, the wolf would open its mouth, the world would burn, the gods would fall, and Odin, who had hung 9 nights in the dark, who had screamed the runes from the void, who had torn his own eye from his face and dropped it into a well, would die with the wolf's teeth around his throat. He had the truth now, all of it. And the truth was that everything ends. He pulled his wide-brim hat low over the empty socket. He took up his spear, the one still stained with his own blood, and he walked back toward Asgard. One-eyed, scarred, 9 days of starvation carved into his frame, carrying the weight of a future he had paid everything to see and could do nothing to change. Every other god sits on a throne and calls himself eternal. Odin sat on a throne and knew he wasn't. He didn't sacrifice for power. He sacrificed because not knowing was worse than dying. If you know someone who chases understanding like that, who has to know, even when knowing costs them something, share this video with them. They will love this story. But the story on your screen right now, a man in ancient China did everything right, rose through the ranks, built something real, and the people above him looked at everything he'd done and destroyed him for it. Click on this thumbnail right now and watch it, and I'll see you in the next story.